having these nuclear power plants work in at the level of safety that they have. In fact, I think there isn't a single American that's ever died because of an accident at an American nuclear power plant, right? Whereas thousands of Americans die every year from the results of burning coal and gas. I mean, how many people die in gasoline fires? How many people die because their homes burn down because there's a gas leak or something like that? How many people are killed on the freeways when their gas tank explodes? We don't think about those things, but that's tens of thousands of people a year that die from asthma and the fires created by the way we generate energy. And not a single American has ever died from a nuclear power plant accident. So while it's more spectacular to talk about the nuclear disaster in Japan, not a single Japanese person has died from that nuclear event, whereas 20,000 people were killed by the earthquake and the tsunami. That was the real disaster. So, the press has blown this nuclear thing way out of proportion, but that's still nuclear fission, which is inherently dangerous, and that's not nuclear fusion, which is what the sun does. Now, who's afraid of the sun, right? I mean, the sun is producing a fabulous amount of energy. It supports all the life on Earth, and that's nuclear fusion. And you can stop the sun by holding up a sheet of paper in front of your face. It's not so dangerous. Now, if you got real close to the sun, you'd be fried. But, where we are, it's perfectly safe. In fact, we wouldn't exist without it, right?
Right.
So there's no, being afraid of the word nuclear is just hysteria. 99.97% of your body is nuclear. We're all nuclear. In fact, we're all radioactive too. There's carbon in our bodies that's decaying every second. There's phosphorus in our bodies that's decaying every second. We're more radioactive than the stuff that's coming over the seas from Japan. So it's really a lack of understanding the numbers that drives these hysterias. And it just doesn't make any sense.
They want you to be
solving our problems.
They want you to be afraid. They want the people to be afraid. I've even said maybe we've been in Armageddon here for the last 100 years because more people have been killed by their governments in the last 100 years than most of history. but maybe the press just didn't tell us about it. The press is not exactly doing what they're supposed to do, are they? Or we'd know more about this nuclear fusion, wouldn't we?
Well, I think they don't understand it, and it doesn't have much publicity. Yeah, I mean, the press operates on the scare of the moment. What crazy guy has shoved people up in the movie theater that makes the press? This kind of discovery has not. And this is also something that the United States government is not supporting at all. So other governments are supporting this research, and companies around the world are looking into this research, and the Europeans are into this research. And so somebody is going to make it work. But the idea was discovered in the United States by a small private corporation in Chicago. And I certainly hope very strongly that Americans will make their own invention work and be able to solve our problems. Otherwise, we're going to have to be buying energy from the French or the Chinese for the rest of our lives.
How about the Iranians? Have you heard about the Kesh Foundation? K-E-S-H-E, I believe.
No, I don't know that one, but I'm sure the Iranians are busily making nuclear bombs. I mean, Iran is floating on a huge amount of oil. There's no rational reason why they need nuclear power plants. And there's a very clear reason why they want nuclear weapons. So everything that they say, I think, is complete nonsense.
I think they and Israel should give up all nuclear weapons. Israel. I said it'd be nice if Israel would, kind of talk about their nuclear weapons, or get rid of them, or lock them up, decommission them. But
well,
probably not much chance of that happening, is there?
nuclear weapons are a very scary situation, and there's, as you said, we're always at the edge of Armageddon. I mean, the amount of nuclear weapons in the world is more than adequate to destroy human civilization as we know it. But on the other hand, there was a valuable reason why nuclear weapons were developed. If you go back to World War II, there were other very scary things going on in the world, like the Nazis and the Japanese, and after the war, the Russians. And what ended the Second World War was nuclear weapons used on Japan. And I think any sensible analysis of the situation will show you that we saved hundreds of thousands of American lives and millions of Japanese lives by ending the war abruptly with the nuclear weapons that we did, as opposed to having a land invasion of that country that would have been fought tooth and nail ferociously by every Japanese citizen. I mean, it would have been tremendous carnage if there had to be a land invasion to end the war. And then after the war, what was the United States facing? There was an army from Russia that had 10 million troops, I believe, and tens of thousands of tanks, vastly outnumbering the armies of England and the United States. And what stopped the Russians from conquering all of Europe was the fact that we had nuclear weapons and we could retaliate. So it wasn't pretty. I mean, war is not pretty. But the fact that we had those nuclear weapons was a tremendous strategic advantage to the United States, and still is. I mean, because we have nuclear weapons, no serious government is going to attack us. And that protects the lives of all of our citizens. So as uncomfortable as it is, there's a very legitimate and important purpose in having these weapons. And we want to make sure that the good guys have at least as many as the bad guys.
Now,
You know,
this
United
research,
States-
this handheld power plant that could be created from nuclear fusion. Do we have
Lenar,
companies? Is that L-E-N-A-R?
L-E-N-R. There's no A there.
Okay.
And it stands for low energy, that's the L and the E, neutron reactions. Low energy neutron reaction. It's not a very nice mnemonic, but that's what it is. And there is a relationship between that and cold fusion. But this LENR is not exactly fusion. It's something related, but different. And the low energy is the important aspect of it. So that means it's not a bomb. It doesn't go off at millions of degrees. It doesn't need to be contained in a vast, block of concrete reinforced blast shield. And it doesn't have to operate at super high temperatures and pressures. So this is something that can operate at more or less room temperature and more or less standard pressure. It's something that's not terribly more complicated than a lithium hydride battery. It has an applied electric field on top of that battery, but lithium and hydrogen could be the two major components of the system. And there's plenty of hydrogen and there's a lot of lithium on Earth, so we're okay.
Yeah, if you hit Wikipedia on that, they link Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann's research as into cold fusion, but they link that to the low energy nuclear reactions that they are finding now that you just mentioned. So that's
okay.
That's linked together in Wikipedia. But what companies? What are there companies that would work for the people, not just for the big banks and the oil companies, that are developing this into a practical source of energy for the people?
Well, there are companies working on it. The company that has the most advanced technical position is this company in Chicago. And the name of that company is Lattice Energy, L-A-T-T-I-C-E, Lattice Energy. I don't have any financial interest in the company, just for full disclosure. I describe the process in my book, Everyone's Guide to Atoms, Einstein, and the Universe. I explain how this works and why it's so much more effective. And there are thousands of scientific papers that have been published on the process in the technical journals. Various companies throughout the world are working on it. They're all private companies. Well, there are also some government agencies, but not the United States government. And you know, I can't tell you who's going to be able to develop the first commercial product, but anybody who knows what's going on should be working on it. This is the biggest financial opportunity, even for the greatest company in the world, for the next 100 years. So it's Chevron Mobil. Is that the name? No, Exxon Mobil. If Exxon Mobil was to be able to make this technology work, they could write off every oil well that they have and laugh all the way to the bank. I mean, this is the greatest financial opportunity in our lifetime, because the world uses so much energy. The energy consumption of the world amounts to, I believe it's $16 trillion a year. So I don't know very many markets that are bigger than $16 trillion a year.
Not many, not many.
And you know, you have something to offer that's a million times better than anybody else has got, so selling it should be a slam dunk, right?
You would think.
So someone's going to make it work. And when they do, it's going to be great for all of us.
Give me, we've got a few minutes left here. We've got 9 minutes left. Let's talk about this God particle. You know, when you analyze it, what holds the atom together? What keeps the nuclear? You know, you usually only get a couple answers: magic or God. You know, is the God particle? Is God what holds the energy together? And is this a vibratory phenomena? You know, I've heard that the real definition of love is your level of vibrational energy. The higher you raise your vibrational level, the more clearly you can see.
Yeah. Well, that sounds exciting. Okay, so what holds atoms together is electricity. That's pretty simple.
Okay.
So let's step back a second. If you look around us, we see everything in the universe that we can look at. It looks unique and different. There's just tremendous diversity. Every person is different from every other person. Even every snowflake is different from every other snowflake. But if you take those things apart, they're all made of molecules. And there's only millions of those. And if you take all those apart, they're made of atoms. And there's only a couple hundred of those, if you include all the isotopes. And if you take those apart, they're all made of elementary particles. They're called elementary because they're not made of anything else. And before the Higgs, there were 16 of them. There are only 16 different things in the entire observable universe. And that is much less diversity than we normally think of. And in fact, all the objects that you see around us are made of only 3 of those 16 things. So it's as if the whole universe is made out of 3 different kinds of Legos. And that's what makes it possible for scientists to understand the universe, because it's the same stuff over and over and over again. And if you understand those 3 things, you're a long way to understanding everything that they're made of. Well, so there were 16. But the problem that scientists had is they couldn't explain the existence of mass. Why did anything have mass? And so 40 years ago, an English physicist and some others invented this Higgs boson as the answer. They said there must be some particle, a 17th particle, that causes the other particles to have mass. And for 40 years, scientists have been looking for this sucker, and it's been a real struggle. And finally, there was an indication of it at the National Laboratory, the Fermi National Laboratory in the United States, which the government shut down, and the definitive confirmation of this discovery was made recently in Europe at the Large Hadronic Collider, that big particle accelerator near Geneva. And so now we aren't sure that what was discovered is exactly what the Higgs was predicted to be, but we are sure that there is something new there, and it has a specific mass which is in the right range to be the Higgs. So everybody's jumping to the conclusion that this is the Higgs. And if it is, this is the particle that explains why the other particles have mass. It's really an academic release. It's an academic discovery. It's an academic excitement. It doesn't change any of the laws of physics, because the laws of physics have already assumed this for the last 40 years. And it's not going to change the price of bread or gasoline or otherwise impact any person in society. Scientists convinced the nations of the world to invest $10 billion to find this thing, and so it's a great relief to the scientists that they're able to deliver on their promise. Otherwise they would have never seen any more research funding. And it's a great relief that this particle has been discovered after 40 years, but other than that, it doesn't really change our lives. And it's no more godly or less godly than any of the other 16 particles. The reason it got that name was sort of a joke, actually. This famous Nobel Prize-winning scientist named Leon Letterman wrote a book about the frustrating search for this Higgs boson, and he wanted to call the book The Goddamn Particle. Because it had been so hard to find. But the publisher wouldn't allow that as a title, so they called it the God particle. And the name was cute, and it sort of stuck. But it really doesn't have any divinity associated with it. Not any more or less than anything else in creation.
Do we? Well, you've certainly given us some hope. The world ain't going to end on December 25th or any 21st, and
right.
We do have the technology to power this. What would this be made of? How would cold fusion? You say you could put it in your hand and generate enough energy, but how would that practically? How would that generator or that power source be created?
Well,
what would contain it? What would hold it? What would? How would we be able to?
It could look like a AA battery.
Okay.
Or maybe a little. You could have it in various sizes depending on how much power you wanted. If you wanted to run the city of Los Angeles, it'd probably have to be as big as a desk. If you wanted to run your car, I think a AA battery would be more than enough. And this would be a battery that would never run out of power. I mean, not in your lifetime. So you buy this thing once, you stick it in your car, or you buy a car that had this in it from the very beginning, and you drive your car forever. And you'd never stop at a gas station. I guess you'd have to have your oil changed periodically, but I mean, you never need more fuel. And if you had one of these things in your house, maybe a little bit bigger than that, you power all your electric needs forever. And people wouldn't be buying solar panels anymore because that's expensive and this would be cheap. And they wouldn't be buying natural gas for the same reasons. I mean, we'd still use some amount of petroleum to make pharmaceuticals and cosmetics and other things, but we wouldn't use petroleum for fuel.
I don't know. What would my Harley sound the same if I switched to battery instead of gasoline?
Yeah. In fact, you could use a lot smaller battery in your Harley. Think about you could replace it with some other cargo space or something, or some nice looking young lady.
Yeah, that's a little tough to find. I went into a restaurant the other day and locally, and and said, do you know where there's any women young enough to still want to ride a Harley? I didn't have much luck. I didn't have much luck. And
well,
now
there's
one other thing. There's one other thing that I wanted to ask you about. A friend of mine has written a book, and I believe he sent you an email talking about farm physics. That's the name of the book he wrote. But he has a process called. His name's David Kaas, Kaas, and he's got several things on YouTube. He got me started, what he calls spinning my water, spinning my fluids. You put your hands on either side of your coffee cup, and 10 or 15 seconds, and it alters the molecular flow of the liquid. The way you can tell it works is if you do that not around your coffee cup but around a Coca-Cola, all the fizz goes out of it. What is happening there? I mean, I almost compared this to prayer, and there's some guy over in Hungary or Kosovo that was doing it like in a church. He'd go in a church and bless everybody's water. They'd bring their jugs of water in, plastic bottles of water in, and he'd charge that. What is the physics involved in that? It's making some. It obviously is making some difference. If it removes carbonation, it makes wine taste better. What is happening there? And I've kind of compared that to praying over food. I mean, if you pray over food, you're putting energy, at least thought energy, into that.
You know, I've never heard of this. Tell me the name of the guy. I have not received an email from him. What's his name again?
It's David Kaas, K-A-S, and I've got some. Kaas,
K-A-S.
Yes, and the name of the book is Farm Physics. If you, you might even put in Cure for Cancer in YouTube and see that. I'll have him send you another one on there.
I don't recall it. I certainly haven't received his email. Let me, David, with one S, K-A-S.
Yes, K-A-S, two A's, and it's sandwiched in between a K and S.
2 A's, okay. Let me try again. K-A-S. Okay, Facebook. Okay, Book Talk Radio. David Kaas quote, Farm Physics, right?
There you go.
That's him?
Yes, sir, that's it.
Okay. I'll look it over, but I haven't heard of it before, so I'll look it over next and see what I think.
All right, sir. Listen, we're out of time.
Okay.
Dr. Robert Piccioni, I really appreciate you being on GuideToTheCosmos.com. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you, Clay, for inviting me.
All right, sir.
Take care.
Bye-bye now. All right.